Look, I wasn't planning to talk about this again, but I think I need to. A couple of months ago, you guys may be aware, I was in Atlanta where I blacked out. I didn't know why at the time. I just knew that apparently something was wrong and eventually I had to get it checked out. Well, what happened after that changed my entire life. What I didn't know at the time was that my heart was failing, literally. And this is the full story of what happened, what I learned, why you haven't seen me for a while, and why you're going to see more of me going forward. Let's talk about it. Hey folks, Kenn Rashad with another edition of the Kenn Rashad Show. And it's been a while since the last episode. As a matter of fact, the last episode has a lot to do with this particular episode because you guys probably are aware of the situation that took place about how I blacked out in Atlanta and so forth. You may remember that video. I was on my way to David Chanz's podcast summit and just happened to be in the middle of downtown Atlanta. I collapsed. Paramedics came out. Atlanta PD came and attended to me and all this other stuff. They wanted to take me to the hospital and I decided, no, I didn't want to go. I just wanted to go ahead and get through the final day of that event so that I can hop on a plane, get to the airport and get back home to Dallas. But I wasn't foolish enough, while I wasn't necessarily willing to go to the hospital while I was in Atlanta, I knew that I wasn't going to be foolish enough to call myself not to address the situation once I got back, because to be quite honest with you, the missus wasn't going to let it happen. But I do want to bring you up to speed on what kind of has happened since that time, because it's why I blacked out in Atlanta is kind of the reason why I'm kind of like in this situation right now. So let me just kind of explain it to you and hopefully it all makes sense. So once I got back, I obviously went and made the necessary appointment to see my primary doctor to get checked out. Now, he had told me once before, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't necessarily fully take him up. He had told me once before that he had detected a heart murmur. And he suggested then that I even go to a cardiologist. And to be quite honest with you, I was kind of slow with it. As a matter of fact, I had actually gone a number of months past before I met with him again. And he never really said anything about the heart murmur. But then I went to another visit and then that issue came up again about, you know what, there's a heart murmur and I want you to go to a cardiologist. And that's exactly what I ended up doing, especially after I had blacked out in Atlanta. And so I didn't really think there was going to be a whole lot to it. And I don't necessarily think he thought there was going to be a whole lot to it. But just to make sure that we crossed all the T's and we dotted all the I's, I went on ahead, followed his advice, scheduled an appointment to go to a cardiologist. And so, and that's what happened. Went to the cardiologist. She indicated, yep, I do detect that heart murmur. And as a matter of fact, I think we need to go ahead and schedule some tests. We're going to go ahead and get you a stress test. And then we're going to go ahead and schedule an echocardiogram just to take a look at it, which is nothing more than a sonogram of your heart. And let's see if we can detect what the problem is. And even she said herself, don't think it'll be anything major, but we just want to make sure we check everything out. So a couple of weeks go by and we go to the first examination, which was the stress test. Now, keep in mind, at the time that I made the appointment, ideally, or typically, I think the way they typically wanted to operate was, let's go ahead and set up the time to do the stress test. And then right afterwards, we want to go ahead and do the echocardiogram. But because of scheduling conflicts and so forth, they couldn't necessarily do it for me on the same day. So it was go get the stress test on this day and then go on this next day to go get the echocardiogram. It's important that I tell you this because this is what happened. So I finally go to the doctor's office and I get the actual stress test. And this is for those of you who may not be aware. They put, all of the wires and everything. They tape you up and they tape you to the machine and they put you on this treadmill and they monitor your heart rate, take all your vital signs and everything else as you go through the process, go through these various steps. And so I go through, stage one. and I'm going through the process. And one of the things that I happened to notice that as I was doing more, as the work was getting more and more intense, I noticed that my blood pressure, instead of going up, was actually going down. I'm thinking, okay. So we go through phase one. One of the most unforgettable HBCU football games I ever attended was in 1980. It was the Grambling versus Alcorn State game in the old Red River Classic. But what I'll never forget was what happened before the kickoff. One of the bands was playing the national anthem. Everything was still, everyone was at attention. And then it got to that last line. And the home of the... Before they could finish, the entire Alcorn crowd yelled, "Praise!" I had never seen anything like that before in my life. For the folks at Alcorn, it's tradition. And that moment stuck with me. And it's one of the many reasons why I wrote the book, HBCU Sports 101, a guide to understanding Black college athletics. It's not just about stats and scores. It's about the stories, the culture, and the people who shape the HBCU sports tradition. You can get your copy now at KennRashad.com, where you can purchase signed bundles, the ebook, and more. Or if you prefer, it's also available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other places where books are sold. Just click the link in the description below, whether you're watching or listening. But if you love the culture, this book is for you. Then we go to phase two. And it's a little bit more intense. The treadmill is going a little faster, and my breathing rate is getting a little higher. And I'm not winded. I'm like, oh, this is nothing. I can handle this. But I still notice that for whatever reason, my blood pressure is going down. I'm thinking, why is that? Okay, so we complete stage two, and we finally get ready to go to stage three. And so now we're in stage three. And so we're going through this process. Now I'm really starting to get winded. And he says, okay, sir. He says, we're about to go to stage four. He goes, now sometimes it's necessary. Some people might want to take a break if you don't think if you want to take a break and you don't want to necessarily go to stage four, you can go ahead and stop now. We can take a quick break before we go to stage four. And for whatever reason, I told him, I said, no, we need to stop. Stop this right now. We aren't going to stage four yet. And so he stops. And before you know it, I find myself on my knees of the treadmill. And I'm like, wait a minute, why am I on my knees? And I see he's rubbing my back, and all of a sudden people start coming in, and I'm thinking, wait a minute. I said, did I just pass out? He goes, yes, sir, you did. I said, I passed out on a treadmill? He goes, yeah, you did. And by this time, doctors and the nurses, everybody who worked in that office, they're all there coming to help you. They got water, and they're trying to help you. Want to take your breath and sit down and all this other stuff, and they're trying to help you. And now, of course, the doctors come in, and they're like, and they're like looking, and they're saying, sir, has this happened to you before? Have you passed out at any other time? And I'm thinking, yeah, as a matter of fact, about a month ago, I passed out in downtown Atlanta. I fell face first, and paramedics, and made a big scene downtown Atlanta. Yeah, I did pass out. And immediately he said, well, that's uncommon. And I think we need to go ahead and schedule a echocardiogram. I said, oh, yeah. I said, I've already got one scheduled. I'm supposed to come back in a couple of weeks. And he just looked at me and was just like, oh, no, sir. You're not coming back in a couple of weeks. We're doing this right now. And let's just go ahead and see if we've got to wait to find a room. We're going to get this done. So now by this time, because he's like, you're telling me you passed out in Atlanta about a month ago, and now you passed out on a treadmill. We've never had that happen before. He goes, no, we need to address this right now. So by this time I said, well, how long do you think this is going to be? The process is going to take about an hour. And as I would typically, I guess anyone would, I called my wife, who just happened to be in the area at the time when I made this appointment. She wasn't that far away. And I told her, I said, look, I was actually in the middle of the treadmill of the actual stress test, and I passed out again. And now they want to do an echocardiogram. I just wanted to let you know where I am and if you want to come and all this other stuff. And of course, she immediately came. So we fast forward, we go and they take me in a room, they're doing the echocardiogram, and then all of a sudden they're taking all of these tests and they're doing the sonogram and so forth. And they finally, after about an hour, they're talking about all these numbers. And I'm thinking, okay, well, what's going on here? And they told me, they said, sir, you have, and these were his words, you have a severe case of aortic stenosis. And I'm thinking, what is that? And basically, it was degenerative. And apparently, this has been an issue that has been in place since I was born. And of course, my mother later tells me, yeah, when you were born, they told me you had a heart murmur, but they said that at the time you might grow out of it. I'm like, well, Mom, thanks for telling me now. Apparently, as they explain, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time trying to explain this because I may not be doing it justice, but basically they're saying that aortic my case basically required the replacement of a valve. In an ideal heart, they told me, think of a Mercedes-Benz emblem. The Mercedes-Benz logo has got the little 3 areas. They said the heart valve is typically like that. You have 3 valves, ideally. In my case, I had 2. They said yours looks like the mouth of a fish. In addition to that, they indicated, and they said, you see all of this white here? They said about 70% of my heart was calcified, and that so much calcium had built up around my heart that blood flow could barely move through, which explained why when I had got overexerted or when I was on the treadmill, my blood pressure was going low because it was fighting to get the proper blood flow out to the rest of my body. And the thing that really hit me is that the doctor says, well, because this happened to you once last month in Atlanta, and now it's happened to you again, he says, you've already blacked out twice. And he says, that means that your risk of sudden death is extremely high. He goes, there's a chance that you can die within the next year. And when you put in consideration the calcification of my heart being at 70%, and that if I didn't do anything, it was just going to progressively get worse. Well, of course, everything stopped at that moment. All of the noise and every plans that I had and so forth just kind of ended there. So it was at that time they explained to me what was going to happen. And in essence, they explained the process. And I'm thinking, oh, well, maybe they'll just go ahead and take some sort of a stent and do whatever the case may be. And instead, they explained to me a completely different process. And I'm thinking, you know what, that sounds like open heart surgery. And they said, that's exactly what it is. You're going to have open heart surgery. And so I'm thinking, wow, okay. And so, of course, my next response was, well, am I going to be limited when this is all done? And basically, they assured me you'll be better off now. Once it's all done, you'll be better off than you had been before. But this is where the plot thickens. So I'm already kind of down and kind of depressed about what I just heard. And they said, well, the next thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and schedule an angiogram. And this is on a Wednesday. And they said, but we want to see if we can possibly get this done on a Friday. And so let's go ahead and set up an appointment with the doctor, with the cardiologist, to see if we can go ahead and get this done. And so already dejected, my wife and I are at the table, at the doctor's trying to schedule an appointment with the nurse to come in on that following Friday. And while we're scheduling this time, and it's like, oh yeah, we've got some time open, they call us back into the doctor's office. And the doctor says, instead of you coming back on Friday, we think we need to go ahead and have you admitted right now. I'm thinking, wait a minute, what? Yeah, we need to have you admitted right now. I can't make you do it, but this is where, and again, I don't want to get too bogged down into details with respect to insurance, but the rationale was because of how insurance companies operate. For you to have to come back in would be considered outpatient. But in the case of you blacking out once in Atlanta and then blacking out here in the office, we suggest you just go through the emergency room because now we can get whatever it is we need to do much faster and we can attend to you much faster. And I'm thinking, what? Oh, because of insurance? Fast forward, I later found out that had I had gone through the proper outpatient process, they told me that my procedure, my surgery, could have taken anywhere from 2 to 3 months to schedule because of the so-called outpatient steps, insurance gaining approval and so forth. But that's beside the point. But the reason why that was just so jarring to me is because I was immediately admitted, had the angiogram on a Friday, and then my surgery took place, I believe, on a Monday. So I have been hospitalized. I'm not fully recovered. I've got probably about another 2 to 3 months another 2 to 3 weeks to go. But that explains the reason why I haven't been around for a whole lot, for a long time. But I felt the need to explain this to you because obviously when you go through a process like that, you have an awful lot of time to reflect. And, I'm not necessarily a spring chicken. I'm not an old chicken, but you have an awful lot of time to reflect on some things. And it became even clearer to me, given where I am right now in my journey, just how important it is for me to fulfill the purpose in which I was brought here for. Okay. And so the reason why I wanted to share this with you is because now more than ever, and while this platform, this podcast was created to tell stories, it was never created to tell my story, which now after having had gone through all of this, it's become more important for me to share those stories of the individuals who are making an impact in our communities. Entrepreneurs, high-level executives, we are going to tell their stories. And hopefully we will all be all the more wiser for it. Okay. So I'm not sharing this story for sympathy. That's not what this is about. I just wanted to be transparent with you about what's been going on and why I've been quiet for the past few weeks. Okay. Like I said, when something like this happens, the world gets clear real fast. And like I said, you begin to reflect on some things, what matters, who matters. You stop taking even the little things for granted. And that's kind of my focus going forward. Okay. So like I said, going forward, the stories won't be about me. I'll keep you updated, obviously, on my prognosis and my recovery. But this platform and this podcast is going to be about the stories of others. And hopefully they will be inspiring. Hopefully they will be motivation for you to move forward in whatever it is that you're doing. But because I am just so grateful to still be here, grateful to have breath, grateful to still be creating. I just felt that it was necessary for me to just let you know what my intentions are going forward. And hopefully it being impactful, not only for myself, but for you as well. Okay. So continue to stick around, continue to visit this platform, continue to visit this channel, subscribe to the podcast, hit the like button, and do all that other stuff. But until next time, God bless you. And I'll see you next time.